Chapter 211 Core of the World. After a while, Lux managed to calm down. However, the excitement of knowing that they possessed such a property still thrilled Lux. It was like discovering that your family is hiding trillions of dollars while living as a middle class.
By the way, Dad, why did you bring me here?
What business do you want to talk about? Lux finally remembered that his father wanted to discuss some business with him. Could it be that you wanted me to inherit this? Lux teased, although he secretly hoped it was true.
Just dream, you have everything in there.
I brought you here to sell this to you, Maximus pointed at the flora and fauna around. Maximus thought it would be a waste to keep the plants here, especially the lower tier ones. They would only take up more space, crowding out other plants due to their fast growth.
Sell?
Lux's eyes lit up. If he could have these rare plants, he could use them as leverage to strengthen the business of Aetherium Guild.
Sure, I will take everything, Lux said quickly, fearing that his father would back out.
Everything?
Do you know how much it costs?
Can I borrow it? Lux as if natural. I didn't say that you can borrow it, you need to pay in cash. Furthermore, there will be no discount, you need to pay the original amount, Maximus smiled. Maximus didn't want Lux to have it easy, otherwise he could just give him money and be done with it. That is fine, Lux reluctantly agreed, lamenting the stinginess of his father. Isn't he his son? How can a father be like this, not even sparing his hard-earned money? Ha ha ha, don't be reluctant. If you're not my son, why would I sell these rare resources to you? If I were willing to sell it to another top family or guild, maybe they would offer me multiple times the price, Maximus said, noticing Lux's mood. Oh, don't worry, Dad, I'm not reluctant, Lux smiled. He just faked it, who knew if his father would be light-hearted and give him a discount? That's better. I'll give you the list later, tell me what you want to buy. A few days later, in the training chamber. Maximus just finished his daily training when his token vibrated.
What is a Tintin?
It's a notification for the Origin Mana Pool reward in the World Competition 3 years ago, Tintin answered.
Oh, that's right, I nearly forgot about this.
Maximus remembered that in addition to treasures the top 3 will also be rewarded an Origin Mana Pool. Just right, I was still thinking about what wedding gift to give Liam and Amara, Maximus pondered. Origin Mana Pool is a vast collection of Origin Mana that can enhance one's connection to the world, thereby increasing talent. Unfortunately, he already possessed a rank 9 talent. As for his elemental affinity, the Origin Pool is not very effective. What is needed to enhance elemental affinity is in specific elemental origin. This kind of thing is rare, and Apex sovereigns often scramble to acquire it.
How could they just give it to the juniors?
Since he can't use it, it's better to use it as a wedding gift. Giving it as a wedding gift to Liam and Amara is just right. Amara originally had a rank 9 talent, but because she just reincarnated, it is still sealed. By now, her talent is still at rank 7. With the Origin Pool, she should quickly regain her former talent, progressing at a faster speed. The only problem is that the possibility of Amara regaining her past memory after she regains her former talent is more likely. Maximus can only wish that his son can handle it. As for the possible retaliation of a former Apex sovereign? Maximus didn't have that worry. Not only can he fight hand-to-hand with a tier 7 beings, but if he uses his trump cards, killing any 8th tier being is easy. Furthermore, he is confident when it comes to training progress. No one can surpass him, not even a former Apex sovereign. Now he was still in accumulation stage, which made his progress a little slow. Once all of that is solved, Maximus was sure to advance like a rocket. Coming out of his training chamber, he was greeted by Sky. Did you also receive the notification? Sky asked.
That's right.
Then let's go, this Origin Mana Pool is a good thing for making wines, as Sky said excitedly. In a few lifetimes, Sky earned a lot of this Origin Mana Pool. As she already had heaven-defying talent, the Origin Mana Pool was useless to her. Turning it into wine is barely okay, which she can drink whenever she likes. Wine is something that can soothe her mood, so she quite likes it. The testament to this is the several stashes of wine she buried during her few lifetimes. Sky just didn't know if it was still there or if someone found it. Soon the two came to the Origin Tower. Entering, they were greeted by Dean Fialon. You two are finally here, Fialon muttered as he grabbed them and teleported to the world Origin. Core of the world, Aetherium World Origin. Opening his eyes, Maximus felt an unprecedented oppression. It seemed as if the whole world was bearing down on him. Even with his deep foundation, he could barely resist the pressure, not to kneel down due to pressure. Meanwhile, Sky also resisted the pressure that nearly knocked her down. Every time Sky came here, it seemed that every hair on her body was the weight of a mountain. Good. You were able to resist the pressure, as expected of the no. 1 and no. 2. Pavilion nodded in satisfaction. As the core of the world, the gravity here is so enormous that even he, a Tier 9 Apex Sovereign, can barely fly. As for teleportation, forget it. Pavilion was only able to teleport here because of the world origin permission. After a while, the top 3, Eloan Shadowfang and Apex Sovereign Alabaster from the Beast Continent came. Unlike Maximus and Sky, who was able to resist the pressure and can still stand, Eloan was immediately knocked down like a pancake. If it was not for the Alabaster's assistance, his body would have been crushed by the pressure. Let's go get your reward quickly, staying here is really uncomfortable, Alabaster, who just came in, hurried. The gravity in the origin world is not the main problem, but its assimilation property. If someone stays here for a long time, they will sooner or later be assimilated into the world. Even now, Alabaster felt his blood being urged to be in the same frequency as this world. If this were not his world, Alabaster would have thought that he was in an alternate abyss. As for Maximus and Sky, they didn't feel even a little of this world's assimilation. Possessing an ultimate dimensional physique, how can a mere Tier 9 world assimilate them? It can only dream of being stronger so it can have these 2 delicious fish. As for the system, Maximus didn't know if the world origin could detect the system. Thus before he came here, he set the system into hibernation mode. While Maximus and the others were picking their rewards. In Sword Domain, Golden Sword Mountain Burial. Alastair was silently meditating, absorbing the golden aura with a hint of sword. With over a decade of training, Alastair had already recovered up to the 6th tier of his strength. After untold hardship, he was finally about to return to his peak. Alastair promised to change his nickname from the shortest Apex Sovereign to ever live to the strongest swordsman alive. This is what he learned after studying the history after his death. Such an embarrassing nickname, even now Alastair wished to cut that scum who came up with such a name. Just as he finished absorbing the aura, a man came up to him. Hello, I am Kufra. May I ask if your highness is Alastair? I am. What do you need? Alastair asked. There should not be many who knew him. Except for the few first Apex Sovereigns of the world, most of them only knew his name. I am tasked to send you a message, Kufra started. Your sister Amara is going to get married in a few months. Lady Amara wishes to have your highness present at such an important event, Kufra explained. Kufra was one of the guild members of the Shadow Hunters Guild who own an intelligence agency. Finding and inviting Alastair to the wedding had a huge reward, so Kufra quickly mobilized his intelligence agency. For 3 whole years, he and the others scoured the whole continent just to find this man. Now that he found Alastair first, how could he not be excited? Finishing this mission, he should be able to get up to the Tier 6 chapter of the cultivation technique that he wanted. Oh, that little girl is going to get married? Alastair was a little dumbfounded. He had just left for a few years, and his sister was already getting married. Furthermore, being able to find him, it seems that his sister's husband is quite powerful. Then I'll make sure to come, Alastair said after thinking. He would like to see if the man taking care of his sister is worthy. Until now, he still didn't know that Amara was also a former Apex Sovereign from the Nexus continent. Alastair just treated Amara like a normal sister who was lucky enough to be his family member when he was still ignorant. Kufra also quickly gave the invitation letter, reminding him that he must come. After all, his additional reward depends on this. Don't worry, I won't miss my sister's wedding. Chapter 212 Aetherium Pavilion Scheme. A month later, in the Silverleaf Domain, Lothmire City. In the Aetherium Pavilion, a wild commotion was unfolding. Around the still-closed pavilion, there was already a massive line of people, hesitating to believe if the recent news was genuine. Aetherium Pavilion, just release a rare spiritual plant catalog that they would sell today? If it's just a few rare spiritual plants, they wouldn't even bother. However, based on the quantity alone, they were already so much less the variety of the rare spiritual plant for sale. Are you sure this isn't just another gimmick of the Aetherium Pavilion? A passerby couldn't help but voice their skepticism, observing the long line. Who knows if it's real or not? Anyway, I'd rather waste a few hours than miss the chance, a man said with a hopeful expression. One of the rare spiritual plants in the released catalog was exactly what he needed for his advancement. Normally, obtaining such an item was beyond his reach. Now that the opportunity was presented in front of him, how could he hesitate? That's right. Anyway, if Aetherium Pavilion fooled us, they would probably be done for. Where could Aetherium Pavilion have obtained such rare spiritual plants? It's intriguing. We don't know for sure. Maybe it's a secret stash kept in the origin domain? It shouldn't be. How can a small Aetherium Pavilion get hold of such a thing? Ha ha ha, the top firm should be watching. Let's just wait. We don't even know if it's real. Soon, the crowd calmed down as they eagerly waited. All over the Silverleaf domain, every branch of Aetherium Pavilion was surrounded by crowds. The commotion was so significant that it even caught the attention of the top echelons from other domains. After all, with such a significant quantity of resources involved, how could they not be curious? Although they were aware of Aetherium Pavilion's connection to a core student of Origin Arcana Institute, they couldn't help but remain doubtful. Meanwhile, in Shadowhunter City, at the Aetherium Guild headquarters, the one who caused the commotion, Lux, had just entered his guild. This guild headquarter was built after obtaining permission from his cheap father. Remembering the process he had gone through just to secure a piece of land for his guild, Lux couldn't help but grit his teeth. Such a piece of land cost him another 1% income share. It's just a piece of land, for heaven's sake. Lux still teared up when he thought of this. As for building the guild headquarters in another domain, which is cheaper, Lux didn't bother to consider that. The Origin domain is the center of the Arcane continent, and building the headquarters anywhere else would make Lux feel like he failed. Furthermore, just the mana concentration in the Origin domain is already worth it. His subordinates have made leaps and bounds in advancement thanks to this investment. Erasing thoughts of his cheap father from his mind, Lux looked at the tens of thousands of monitors around. This is all the surveillance footage of all the branches of Aetherium Pavilion in Silverleaf City. With him are also thousands of managers who were sifted through tens of millions of applicants. Guild President, should we start the event? Xavier, one of the Vice Guild Presidents, asked. Originally, Xavier was a successful businessman while he was still studying at Moonlight Academy. He was also one of the richest men in the Moonlight Empire. Due to Lux's recruitment, Xavier's original plan of expanding his business throughout the Moonlight Empire and beyond took a turn. A more ambitious goal is a more exciting challenge for Xavier. He decided to join Lux because he was the son of His Majesty. He thought of using such a platform to reach his goal faster. Who knew that Lux busted him in just an interview? After a few exchanges with Lux, Xavier's contempt for such a rich kid turned into admiration. Advanced arithmetic, management skills, prediction, a keen sense for the market, Lux had too much knowledge that Xavier didn't know. To learn more from Lux, he gladly took the position of Vice Guild President. Of course, his initial goal of being independent didn't change. Xavier just took this chance to learn and experience more. Looking at the guild leader frowning, sighing, and smiling in just a few seconds, Xavier thought that Lux was worried about the performance of their plan. Then let the fun begin, it's time to earn the big bucks, Lux excitedly said. Upon hearing this, the others took their intercoms one by one and communicated with the various branches. Aetherium Pavilion, Lothmire City Branch. Look, it's finally opening. Finally, I've been waiting for hours. Let me in first, I've been here since yesterday. The commotion grew louder as the door slowly opened. Finally, two stewards came and greeted them at the door. Please come in orderly, we have enough for everyone. The crowd also calmed down a little after this reminder, though they still didn't entirely believe it and squeezed around to get in first. As the first individuals entered, they were greeted by various posters and sealed rare spiritual plants on display. It's real. Wow, is that jade green oak? There is also the rare blood crystal mushroom. Hey, there is a rare aphrodisiac, red panax ginseng. The crowd went wild upon realizing that everything in the news was real. If the spiritual plants were not in sealed glass, they would have probably grabbed them by now. I want this Welwitschia crystal herb. How much is it? An individual finally couldn't help but ask. A tier 5 rare spiritual plant, Welwitschia crystal herb. It would be 5 million magic crystals for this gentleman. Pack me too, the man said excitedly. This gentleman, we are sorry. The Aetherium Pavilion only has a limited supply of spiritual plants. To buy more, you need to avail and upgrade your membership card, the service staff said apologetically. What? You need a membership card? The crowd was a little shocked. Originally, they would have liked to hurry and buy the spiritual plants they wanted before they sold out. But what the service staff said suddenly slowed them down. The Aetherium membership card was implemented from the beginning. The function of the card is to give its members various incentives and discounts. What is different from other member cards from other shops and pavilions is that you need to pay for them yearly. In most shops, as long as one spent enough money, one could automatically get a membership card without any additional payment. Aetherium Pavilion is the only one that dared to implement such an insane thing. And like new things, such a scene failed miserably, with few availing a membership card. Many even laughed at the greediness of such a pavilion, requiring a yearly payment just for a membership card. May I ask how much it is to avail a membership card? The man who wanted to buy 2 portions of the spiritual plant asked. For this gentleman to buy an unlimited portion of the Tier 5 spiritual plant, you need a Tier 5 membership card. And that would cost 10 million magic crystals, the service staff said with a smile. The man was a little dumbfounded. Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of money. If I want to buy more, what can I do? The man asked. It's simple. You can either pay with raw resources directly or wait a year to buy a similar tiered plant. You can pay with resources? Of course, our Aetherium Pavilion accepts anything, the service staff smiled. Their pavilion was short of raw resources, so getting them as payment was worth it. Few sell such raw resources, preferring to use them themselves or trade them for other raw resources. After all, if you sell them, they would be very cheap compared to the finished product. This is why Aetherium would rather accept raw resources than money. As for buying raw resources from other firms, it would be very expensive and the profit margin wouldn't be that great. The crowd, upon hearing that they could use raw resources to purchase these rare spiritual plants, cheered. As for the membership card, they just need 2 or 3 spiritual plants. Why waste money on such a scam? Soon, the crowd eagerly exchanged their resources to buy spiritual plants, fearing it would not be enough. The various spies from other firms also began to move. First is to buy the scam-like membership card. Unlike the others, they needed a huge quantity. Using raw resources would not be worth it for such a purchase. They can only grit their teeth and spend money on such an obvious scam. Holding their freshly bought card, the spies from various firms laughed a little. They thought of buying all the rare spiritual plants in Aetherium Guild and shifting the attention to them. After that, all the work the Aetherium Pavilion had done was just a useless propaganda. I want all your supply of this Tier 5 Rafflesia flower, one of the spies said. I'm sorry, sir, your Tier 5 membership only has a 100 purchase limit on it. If you want to purchase more, you might want to upgrade your card, the service staff said apologetically. What? I thought you said it was unlimited earlier? The spy said with bloodshot eyes. Chapter 213 Liam X Amara. The spy was shocked and angry that he was only allowed to buy 100 spiritual plants despite purchasing the sky-high membership card. I'm sorry, gentlemen, this is the rule of the shop. You can only buy 100 plants of the same tier per year, the salesperson apologized sincerely. But you said earlier that I could buy an unlimited number, the spy insisted. Gentlemen, we are sorry, but it's a misunderstanding, the salesperson apologized again without sincerely. The earlier play of words was instructed by Lux. Although this little money was nothing to the top firms, it can discuss a little bit. Then how much is a Tier 6 membership card? The spy asked angrily. Having already brought the membership card, there is nothing he can do. Furthermore, to buy rare resources, using money is already good enough. It would be 100 million. So expensive. Then, how much can I buy with that? You can buy 1,000 strands of Tier 5 spiritual plants and 100 strands of Tier 6 spiritual plants. It's indeed a greedy shop, the spy thought, gritting his teeth. Get me a Tier 6 membership card and the corresponding plant, the spy said after thinking. Although he needed to spend extra money, rare resources were still needed. After all, even with the big firms behind them, rare resources are rare for a reason. The other spies from other firms also bought the membership card while loathing the greediness of the pavilion. As for the Tier 7 membership card, they didn't have the money to buy it. It cost 10 billion for one, and there is not even a Tier 7 rare spiritual plant for sale. You could only get more quota for low-tier plants. More importantly, they were only given a budget of a few billion, they couldn't afford it. Soon the crowd began to calm down, as it seemed that the spiritual plant was inexhaustible. With tens of thousands of spiritual plants already sold, it seemed that the rare spiritual plant was as common as vegetables. To achieve this feat, Lux borrowed money to buy the spiritual plants from his cheap father with high interest. This means all the spiritual plants sold not only earned him money but also cost him. Fortunately, he could earn a lot for the membership fee and the raw resources. More importantly, Lux could expand his business and make it more of a household name. In the Shadowhunter City, Aetherium Guild headquarters, the monitoring room was full of jovial energy. Seeing the success of their operation, they couldn't help but celebrate. "Guild leader, you should give us a bonus after this," a guild member teased. "Of course, a bonus is indispensable," Lux nodded wryly, thinking that a bunch of money grabbers were around him. However, although Lux was stingy, he still gave all that needed to be given. After all, if he wanted the horse to run, he needed to provide enough grass and water. In the city of Arcana, Maximus Manor. While Lux was busy earning money, Maximus and his wives were busy preparing for the wedding. In only a few days, it would be Liam and Amara's wedding. As for Nathan and Zoe, it would be next year when they are old enough. Looking at the festive theme of the manor Maximus, he couldn't help but smile. Although it was only a home wedding, the design and theme would not lose to any wedding ceremony. "Is this fine?" Erica asked, nervous about her son's wedding. "Don't worry, isn't this much grander than our wedding?" Hazel couldn't help but joke. Marrying Maximus when he was just a noble, certainly their wedding was not so grand. "However, for me, it's the most grand wedding," Erica hurriedly refuted. Being with her husband, there is nothing more she can ask. "That's right, it's also the most grand for me," Hazel nodded in agreement. "Weddings have nothing to do with these fancy things. The most important thing is that both partners love each other," Hazel explained. "I'm just worried that my son won't do well," Erica expressed her concern. "Don't worry too much, Liam is in our husband's good hands," Hazel comforted. Looking at their husband teaching Liam the do's and don'ts, they couldn't help but smile. Such a peaceful and happy family, they couldn't ask for more. A few days later, the grand wedding finally ensued. All over the manor were their family members, from grandparents, aunties, and uncles to cousins. There were also Liam's and Amara's friends and classmates. Although they were not very close towards their classmates, they still talked from time to time. Inviting them to the wedding was to enliven the event. When the wedding ceremony was about to begin, Amara looked around anxiously, not seeing her brother. "Can't find your brother?" Liam asked with a smile. Looking at his beautiful bride, he didn't want to see her frowning. "Yeah," Amara nodded. "He's on the way here. Furthermore, you don't have to worry, the wedding ceremony won't start without your brother," Liam comforted. He was not in a hurry for the wedding, he had a lifetime to be with his wife. What were a few minutes of waiting? Soon, as Liam had said, Alastair was guided by the servant puppet inside. "Brother." Amara bloomed like a flower with a smile. Sister, Alastair was a little stunned seeing Amara. It's not that he was dazzled by her beauty, but because a vague figure popped up in his mind. The battle goddess of nature, Amara, one of the top apex sovereigns in the Nexus continent. It can't be true, Alastair unconsciously thought. A few years ago, Amara was still too little to show any resemblance. Furthermore, his memories were still in chaos. Now, seeing the girl in front of him, whether in physical appearance or name, he couldn't be wrong. Suddenly, he seemed to remember that this was Amara's wedding. A battle goddess from the Nexus continent marrying someone from the Arcane continent? This is a humiliation. Alastair thought of stopping the marriage immediately. However, just when this thought popped up, a hint of crisis seemed to emerge, freezing him. "Calm down, don't ruin my son's wedding." A transmission was sent into his mind. Alastair also calmed down and assessed the situation. The crisis he felt just now reminded him that he was still a weakling and can't act impulsively. "Sister, congratulations on your wedding." Alastair smiled widely as if his previous thoughts were an illusion. Anyway, Amara would be the one to suffer humiliation, not him, Alastair thought. As for why marrying intercontinentally is considered humiliation, it's just the mindset of people from the Nexus continent. They thought of being partners with people from other continents was a humiliation because they regarded others beside them as weaklings. They are worried that their genes will pass on to a weak-willed individual, humiliating them in the future. Such a wild tradition can only be born from the battle continent, the Nexus continent. Then I thank my brother for taking the time for our wedding, Amara smiled, reminiscing about the past. Thinking of her silly brother who only knew how to swing a sword, and seeing him now, Amara couldn't help but smile. "I didn't expect that you would become so strong in just over a decade," Amara commented, sensing Alistair's 6th tier aura. By now, they had just reached tier 3. This is thanks to suppressing their progress to build a deep foundation. "You're not bad either, sister," Alistair said with a sigh. Although Amara was only at tier 3 feeling such a deep foundation, Alistair couldn't help but get a little jealous. This was probably the most solid foundation he had felt in all of his lives, both current and previous. Such a foundation is what he had strived to have. Unfortunately, he was dirt poor, unable to guarantee even his training. Alistair even thought of joining the Origin Arcana Institute like in the old times to solve his urgent need for resources. However, he stopped. He didn't want anyone to know about his rebirth for now. The Origin Arcana Institute had a piece of his soul when he enrolled in the beginning of its existence. Once he joined, it would only be a matter of seconds before the news of his rebirth reached the top figures of this world. As for how Amara could join without revealing her existence, it's because she didn't study here previously. Naturally, the institute didn't have a strand of her soul. As for other identification like name and appearance, it's not reliable. Anyone can transmute into whomever they wanted. Furthermore, with a vast number of population, same appearance and name is not very uncommon. "By the way, sister, is this your groom?" Alistair shifted the topic. "Oh, how rude of me. This is my future husband, Liam." "Liam, you should know my brother, Alistair." Amara grabbed Liam's arm as she introduced him to her brother. "Nice to meet you, brother-in-law. I'm Liam Shadowcrest." Liam introduced with a smile. "Nice to meet you." Alistair also smiled as he eyed Liam. Like Amara, Liam had a very solid foundation, perhaps even more solid. Seeing this, Alistair couldn't help but nod. People in the Arcane Continent were indeed wealthy, even little children have such a solid foundation. However, Shadowcrest, where could he have heard that before? Chapter 214 Curse of Love. Shadowcrest? Are you from the cursed continent, Moonlight Empire? Alistair finally remembered. The ruling family of the Moonlight Empire is surnamed Shadowcrest. It's just that he rarely heard it, so he didn't remember for a while. "Indeed, the ruler of the Moonlight Empire is my father," Liam said with a smile. "So it is? You two should have known each other from the beginning," Alistair said, drawing a conclusion. After all, his sister couldn't possibly have met a significant figure in the Arcane Continent in just a few short years. Alistair also heaved a sigh of relief, thinking that the battle goddess of the Naxos continent was not really humiliated. After all, he still hated people from the Arcane Continent. The thought of having people from his origin marry people especially from the Arcane Continent made him grit his teeth. While the three people were reminiscing and talking about the wedding, Maximus, who was silently watching, heaved a sigh of relief. "Fortunately, you're a bit knowledgeable," he thought, seeing that Alistair didn't speak his thoughts. The pressure Alistair felt earlier was from him. Before inviting Alistair, he had already thought of the possibility of him recognizing Amara. After all, they had been in the same era and continent. The chances of recognizing each other, even in their reincarnated forms, were high. As for why others didn't notice it, like one of the Apex sovereigns, Pavilion, Maximus was not sure. Maybe they had already noticed, but they just didn't say anything. After all, for them, as long as it didn't reach their level, they didn't care much. Maximus was worried about Alistair because he was known as one of the most reckless Apex sovereigns in history. Who knew if he would blow up the wedding in the heat of a moment? Thus, as soon as he noticed that something was wrong, he quickly mobilized his power and pressured Alistair. Although it seemed that he was only tier 5, while Alistair was tier 6, the magnitude of power between them was vastly different. Even if Alistair was a reincarnation of an Apex sovereign, Maximus could crush someone like him between his fingers like an ant. "Husband, what are you deep in thought about?" "The wedding ceremony is about to start," Erica urged him. "Oh right." Maximus also began to concentrate on the wedding ceremony. Soon, Liam and Amara participated in the traditional wedding customs of the Origin domain. After exchanging vows of oaths, they greeted each other's parents and friends, receiving congratulations. Then, a party follows as they eat and have fun. With the manor doors open, many shameless students joined in. They took this as an opportunity to indulge in the luxurious food. After all, Tier 8 and Tier 9 food was a significant nourishment for these less fortunate students. Of course, gifts were indispensable. Maximus gave the origin mana pool as planned, and his wives presented their crafted gifts to the newlyweds. Liam's mother, Erica, gifted a bunch of baby-nourishing food, expressing wishes for early children. This left the couple embarrassed, imagining their children in the future. Liam's siblings were more straightforward, giving baby toys, clothes, or even direct monetary gifts. Lux quoted that having a family is expensive. Thus Lux gave a family gift package containing magic crystal worth about 100 trillion. This generosity shocked the siblings very much. Their stingiest little brother can give such a big amount of money? Of course, Lux is not so generous. It was the income he earned in just a few days after the Aetherium Pavilion promotion. Just a few days earned him 100 trillion, how can he just stay silent and not brag about it? With the monetary gift, Liam and Amara became super rich, all of a sudden sending a wave of envy. Especially the students who spontaneously joined in. They were shocked at such a generous gesture. They wish they also have such a brother. By then if they married once a day, wouldn't that make them the richest man? Alistair's gift was straightforward as well, a sword nourished by his soul. After all the ceremonies, the couple returned to their own house, not in Maximus Manor but beside it. As official students, they had the option to rent a house of their own. Liam, wanting to create a private space for himself and Amara, chose to live separately. Upon returning home, two people observed them intently. "It's really the same," a lady remarked, comparing the breath in the crystal with Liam's. "It should be the man our goddess is looking through," her companion replied. "We should report it quickly." These two were from the divine continent. They were one of the believers assigned to look at the origin domain. Initially, they were a little hungry, but seeing that there was a wedding giving free high-tier food, they eagerly joined in. Who knew after coming in their detection crystal crazily vibrated? Quickly sending a message to their goddess, they couldn't help but feel excited. After a while, a reply came through. They were tasked by their goddess to continue gathering all the information they could from the man. Meanwhile, in the divine continent, Elysian domain. After Elysian sent her believer a follow-up order, a smile formed on her lips. "I didn't expect to find you so quickly," Elysian said, already imagining killing the man and breaking the curse of love. Liam, I found you so quickly," Elysian unconsciously muttered. "Not good." Elysian's face darkened as the curse of love grew stronger. What did that bastard do to make this curse so strong? Elysian thought, not daring to think the name of the man. Every minute she did so, it seemed that the curse became stronger. "I need to end this quickly." Elysian couldn't just depend on her believers any longer. Using the previous goddess stored money, Elysian quickly contacted a top intelligence organization in the arcane continent. Spending a few quadrillion magic crystals, in just a few hours she obtained the information she needed. From every move, family member, hobby, like, relationship, friend, etc., Elysian could only say that the money was worth it. Browsing the information, instead of a smile, the frown on Elysian's face became gloomier. A core student? The most talented in this generation? What a fucking rich second generation. Even a goddess like her began to curse at Liam's background. Although it may not seem like it, a core student has a higher background than them, the new gods. Furthermore, being the strongest in a generation is no joke, it's already equivalent to a quasi-high god. What do I do now? Elysian thought sadly. She felt the curse of love becoming stronger. If earlier she had a few thousand years, now she didn't even have a year. The curse of the zealous witch seems to be reborn, helping the curse of love become stronger. The situation nearly drove Elysian crazy. As for why it suddenly went crazy, it's probably because she read the part that the bastard of a man is married. This drove the curse of zealous witch crazy, magnifying the curse of love. If she didn't do anything, she would be assimilated into her authority in less than a year. Do I seek help or go directly? Elysian pondered. But considering that bastard man's background, Elysian had no other choice but to seek help. Coming to the god domain in the Council of Gods, Elysian met up with Lady Ruliana again. After explaining her problem, Elysian waited anxiously. "So you found the source of the problem, huh?" Ruliana muttered as she read the information about Liam. "Unfortunately, we can't help you," Ruliana said with a sigh. "If it's just a core student, there's no need to worry about offending them. But this one is different. The Supreme God often talks about this man named Maximus. Such a man is something we can't offend because of some new god," Ruliana said ruthlessly. "Is there nothing you can do?" Elysian asked. By now she was already haggard with deep worry in her eyes. Knowing that her end is near, she is very unwilling. There is nothing we can do. Furthermore, don't think of attacking personally. Seeing that Elysienne's eyes showed a hint of ruthlessness, Rulliana warned. As a new god, even if you went crazy, you can't kill even an ant in the city of Arcana, Rulliana added. The city of Arcana is not called the safest place in the Aetherium realm for no reason. The Aetherium realm can be destroyed, while the city of Arcana would still be alive and kicking. Then should I just wait and die? Elysienne said wryly. Just becoming a god for a few decades, she didn't even achieve any of her goals yet. There's still a way, Rulliana suddenly said. What way? Elysienne asked hopefully. Just marry the man, Rulliana said straightforwardly. As long as you don't go crazy like the previous goddess of love, you should be fine, Rulliana advised. According to the investigation of the Council of Gods, the previous goddess of love was assimilated by her authority because of the instigation of Oregon, the god of desire. Such a thing is quite common in the divine continent. Each god of the same nature of authority often fights to the death, hoping to assimilate each other god's authority. The Council of Gods didn't forbid such a thing, as it was the only way to become a high god. Without making your authority whole, one is just a pseudo-god. Elysienne's eyes seemed to show confusion as she listened to Rulliana's advice. And Mary? Chapter 215 Virtual Lore. Mary? That's right. You just need to elope with the one who put you into that position, and everything will be fine, Rulliana nodded in confirmation. Elysienne fell into thought as she processed what Rulliana had just said. She just learned that the previous goddess of love had gone crazy. As for how the previous goddess of love went crazy, she didn't know. However, marrying that bastard, Elysienne's feelings were contradictory. Her curse of love seems to be both yearning and hopeful. Meanwhile, she couldn't wait to kill the bastard who put her in this situation. After a few minutes of thinking, Elysienne sighed. I wonder how I should proceed to marry that man? Elysienne asked. After all, she is still a god of the divine continent. Elysienne can't just marry off with a man from another continent as she pleases. This is easy, just give up your god's authority and pursue the man, Rulliana said emotionlessly. Give up my god's authority? Elysienne was speechless. That's right. After all, how can a god marry a mortal? Furthermore, you are marrying a man from another continent. Carrying god authority without strength is like saying to the world, rob me. Most of the new gods who ventured outside didn't believe in this saying. Venturing outside, they proudly carried their god's authority, confident in their strength. However, just after coming into the chaotic sea, a team of Tier 8 god hunters was already on the watch. God's authority is already equivalent to pseudo-ultimate treasure. Such resources can be said to be coveted, especially among these Tier 8 individuals. Consuming a god's authority could significantly increase their chances of ascending to the apex. Unfortunately, gods aren't fools. Aside from regularly dealing with these god hunters, they also set a rule that one must leave one's god's authority in one's domain before coming out of the continent. After all, god authority is a non-renewable resource. Once it is absorbed by others, it's gone unless you kill the one who absorbed it and take it back. Listening to Rulliana, Elysienne frowned. Does that mean I will no longer be a god? She asked. No, it's just temporary. It's just storing your god authority in your domain. This is just a preventive measure. Although you'll grow weaker without the god's authority, you'll have a perk of immortality, Rulliana explained. Gods are immortal. As long as their god's authority isn't destroyed, they are immortal. Is that so? Elysienne nodded in relief. She was just a new god, so these things were new to her. In the decades since she became a god, she had been either managing her domain or studying her authority. If it were not for all these troubles, she would not even come out of her domain. After Elysienne talked more about the specifics to Rulliana, she exited the Council of God. Coming back to her territory, she ordered most of her believers to be stationed in the Origin domain and all over the Arcane continent. This would be her next base of operation, and she couldn't let anything slip up. As for the one guarding her god's authority when she leaves it here, it was not necessary. According to the God's Treaty, based on Rulliana, no god was allowed to steal a god's authority that was unattended. They could either fight it out or conspire against each other. Blatant stealing was prohibited, otherwise, these gods wouldn't come out of the continent at all. And if they ever came out, they wouldn't dare to leave their god authority aside. With all of that, wouldn't it mean that it would be cheaper for the other continent if they ever killed a god and looted the god's authority? Anyway, Elysienne was quite confident in the safety of her domain, so she only left a bare minimum of believers to manage it. As her next base of operation, she would stay in the origin domain until she controlled the curse of love or became strong enough. As for worrying about that bastard not marrying her, Elysienne was still confident in her charm. As a goddess of love, if she couldn't even charm the man that she loved, wouldn't she be the most useless god ever? After leaving her god's authority, she confidently left to travel to the arcane continent. A few months later, after Liam and Amara's wedding, everything went back to normal. Maximus conducted his daily training experiments, overseeing his empire and guild as usual. He also constantly urged Liam to have a child, but unfortunately, his stubborn son didn't want children for now. Liam expressed his desire to enjoy their time as a couple for a while longer, to which Maximus just sneered. After Amara absorbed the origin mana pool and regained her memory, Maximus speculated that Liam might not even share the same bed as Amara. By then, Liam could only cry hoping to coax Amara back. Meanwhile, on the cursed continent, an undercurrent was brewing. Secret alliances and exchanges began, and several ambitious emperors were secretly accumulating strength before the all-out war. Maximus estimated that the true war would begin once a Tier 8 emperor appeared. Currently, it was still petty fights and alliances suppressing others in this race against ascension. Maximus was aware of all this due to the microsurveillance bot. Unfortunately, it couldn't still pass through the amalgamation of will. His microsurveillance bot had encountered a bottleneck. Unless Maximus thoroughly studied the amalgamation of will, he couldn't overcome it. A year ago, he even invested over 100 billion system points, but there was still no progress. A month's worth of accumulated system points just went to waste. Maximus decided to set it aside for now and concentrate on another project. And what was that project? It involved a bunch of microbots for mining, harvesting, building, fighting, etc. With almost an unlimited supply of atomic god metal that he can fully control, how could he not make use of its full potential? While in deep thought, Maximus felt a large entourage approaching his manor. Who could it be? Maximus wondered. Opening the array formation, he was greeted by a group of women looking at him intently. What do you want? Maximus asked, frowning. Just now, he felt a trace of Liam's breath to the leading person of this group. With his sensitivity to energy, this breath seemed to be filled with love? Anyway, Maximus also noticed that they were from the divine continent. Now the question is, how could Liam's breath still influence this person? I'm here to meet your son, Liam, for a discussion, Elysienne said in a somewhat domineering and shy tone. He is not here. You should come back later, Maximus shook his head. Liam and the others were still in class and would return later. Can I wait inside? Elysienne requested. Truthfully, she already knew that Liam was still in class. After all, she had her believers, looking at Liam 24/7. Elysienne first came here to greet this difficult man that they couldn't offend. Then come in, Maximus said after some thought. Feeling Liam's breath in the girl, he thought she might be Liam's mistress. Thinking of that bastard son, who was already married and still wanted a mistress, Maximus could only give a thumbs up. That's my son, continue to kidnap girls and make our family prosperous, Maximus cheered mentally. As for being attracted to the girl, Maximus had none of that. He had already passed that age of being attracted to beauties. To him they were all the same. Furthermore, there were still two people he couldn't get even now, Denise and Lilith. Denise was such a shy cat, allowing herself to be touched but not making him responsible. As for Lilith, if it weren't for occasional chatting, Maximus would have thought she was already dead. Apparently, she was still undergoing devil training from her sister. Such a poor Lilith being bullied by her sister. After taking them to the guest house, Maximus finally asked what had been brooding in his mind. So, what's your relationship with Liam? Elysienne didn't know how to answer for a while. Should she say she was Liam's virtual lover? Without hesitation, Elysienne told everything: the curse of the zealous witch, the curse of love, the problems she encountered, why she had come here, etc. Elysienne didn't bother to hide anything. As a core student, equivalent to a pseudo-high god, Elysienne knew that her information was within Maximus's fingertips. And it really was. With Tintin around, it was equivalent to Maximus having a top intelligence organization. All the information being transmitted within the arcane continent could be known by him. He even sometimes used it to know what was happening all over the Aetherium realm. So, that's it? Maximus nodded after hearing Elysienne's side of the story. He could only be proud of his son for bagging another goddess from another continent. Sometimes he wondered if Liam had a system to charm all these goddesses to himself.